One-on-One with Willard Kinzer is presented by Kinzer Drilling in Prestonsburg, who are proud to support Hope of the Mountains.
In Webster's, the word humble means showing a modest estimate of one's self-importance. You'll never hear it from the horse's mouth, but without him, the Wesley Christian School, the Highland Center for Autism, the Mountain Arts Center, and Hope in the Mountains for Addicted Women probably wouldn't exist. He dropped out of high school, joined the Navy to fight in World War II when he was too young to do so. He married the love of his life, and it lasted 70 years. He lost 3 children, survived explosions, and too many accidents in his beloved dragsters and on-hill climbing motorcycles. Oh, and in the meantime, he built a billion-dollar business in Floyd County. Join us now as our own Shannon Deskins goes one-on-one with Willard Kinzer.
James Willard Kinzer was born in Floyd County on April 28, 1928 in the community of Allen, and that's where Samuel and Rosa Kinzer raised their 4 children. And you wouldn't know it by talking to him today, but Willard Kinzer will tell you as a youth he had a little bit of a wild streak.
I was a little rowdy in my young days, and I guess we've all been at one time or another. I got to drinking, and even while I was going to school, my dad would give me a quarter for my lunch, and I'd take it out, and that's when I was and I started in high school at Prestonsburg, and buy me a pint of wine and get a little high, and then go back into school. And I finally got to drink a little bit too much, and the teacher could tell there was something wrong with me. So Claiborne Stevens was the principal. He called me in. Said, I know what you've been doing. And he said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. He said, I'm going to expel you, and not for a week or 2 weeks, but he said, don't never come back in. He said, forever, don't never come back into this school again. He said, you go back and go to work for your dad. Said, you don't need an education. Said, your dad will help you, take care of you, and said you're a good worker, and just forget about an education. So that was the end of my formal education.
But to Willard Kinzer, those words only served to motivate him.
I would get an education. It may not be a formal education. It may be an Abraham Lincoln education, but I would educate myself to where I could survive in this world and make it, and I did.
Willard was 15 years old when he walked out of Prestonsburg High School for the last time. He started working for his father, digging water wells by hand, but he couldn't shake the feeling he had gotten a year earlier when he was given some horrible news while watching a movie in Prestonsburg.
And Lawrence Keithley owned the theater. It was on December the 7th. Pearl Harbor Day. He come out, it wasn't Pearl Harbor Day until that day. He come out on the stage, turned the lights on, stopped the movie. They was playing Gone with the Wind was the movie. And he said, folks, he said, I hate to tell you this, but we've got a bad thing that's just happened to our country. He said, the Japanese has attacked Pearl Harbor, and they've bombed and destroyed about everything over there, our complete naval base. That's where we had took all of our warships and everything when we was headed to get them. But they headed us off first
Anyone who knows Willard Kinzer knows he doesn't like to be told he can't do something. And that was especially true when, as a 16-year-old boy, he was told he couldn't fight for his country.
It was a patriotic time back then. Everybody was real patriotic, and a lot of young kids, just like me, 15, 16 years old, that got into the service.
Yes, you heard him right. At 16, Willard joined the United States Navy.
I changed my birth certificate. I'll show you how I changed it. They put the date on it. See, if you can make a 6 out of that real easy.
Yep.
And that's the only thing I had changed is that one number. And I changed it to make me 2 years older.
And Willard wasn't alone. As many as 200,000 underage young men and women altered their birth dates in order to serve their country during World War II. And with the war in full swing in 1944, he didn't have to wait long.
They said, well, if you will go straight on and not go back home, we'll send you up to Great Lakes and you get your basic training and you can get into the Navy. I said, well, that's fine. I'm ready to go. So I went. I took 6 weeks training at the naval base up at Great Lakes. They sent me to San Francisco, was the closest naval base where they wanted to send me to, South Pacific. And got on a troop train. And best I remember is about 7 days and nights on the troop train from Chicago to San Francisco.
Willard was stationed at Manus Naval Base in the Admiralty Islands in the South Pacific, and that's where he worked his first job for the United States Navy.
I was a clerk in the supply depot that handled the parts. They had garages and repair places, and they repair ships, and they gave me a very important job. I thought it was at the time.
But it wasn't long before the Navy found out Willard was only 16, and they had to send him back to Kentucky. And while he was waiting for a ship to take him home, an ammunition ship named the USS Mount Hood arrived, and Willard was asked to help unload it.
There was 8 of us that walked out here and was waiting to get on one of these little boats here to go out to that ship. And as you can see the walkway here going down to the ocean. It had 3 or 4 of them. But anyway, we was out here getting ready to get on one of these boats and go out to that big ship to help unload it. And they had loudspeakers on these telephone poles. Long story short, as we was going down to get on the boat, I heard over the loudspeakers came over and said, James Willard Kinzer, serial number 9292187, report back to the main office. Your order has been changed. I come back, walked out to the main office, got my new orders. They said, get your clothes right fast. It's a ride home for you. So I went straight and got on another boat and went out to one of these boats out here someplace. But one of these here, because it felt like it picked my boat up 20 or 30 feet right straight up out of the water. And I have never heard an explosion like that in my life.
The blast killed 350 men aboard the Mount Hood in small boats loading alongside it. 22 small boats nearby were sunk, and nearly 400 sailors were injured. But Willard Kinzer says he lost something that day that changed his life.
You know, most people has fear of things. From that time on, I was never afraid of nothing. I mean, I can get in a race car and do 250 miles an hour, where that car blew up there, and I was doing 180 some mile an hour when it blew up. I drove that car just as straight as could be, right on off of the track, and it blew the front end off, windshield out. You could see the hood going up there about 30 foot. It never scared me one bit.
Hope in the Mountains is a residential treatment facility for women. It's for women who have substance use disorders. We look at individual counseling, group counseling, and we incorporate 12-step meetings also. The staff has a lot of self-awareness, personal self-awareness, and I think that is so crucial when working with this population, because you can only help someone heal to the extent that you've healed yourself.
When Willard Kinzer returned home, he had two things on his mind. One was helping his father and his uncle in the family business, but the other was reconnecting with a young lady named Lucy.
We got to writing back and forth. Of course, back then it'd take 30 days to get a letter. and then whenever I come back, well, we started going together. It wasn't too long till we got married.
And that was the beginning of a marriage that would last 70 years. In fact, Willard says he can still remember the first time he ever saw Lucy.
This little girl come out and she danced all over the place. And I thought she was the cutest little girl I ever saw. Of course, I was just a little bit older than her. She was probably at that time 14. I was 15, I guess, and I really, really liked her.
As Willard and Lucy started their journey, Willard began helping his father and uncle build the Kinzer Water Well Company. They started out with hand-dug water wells, but with Willard's drive, that quickly changed.
My dad passed away in the early 50s. He had one rig that when I worked for him, it's just a little small $1,000 rig, and I'd always been real ambitious. I wanted to make the company grow. First year, I bought one rig, next and another one. Wound up, had I think 5 or 6 rigs. We made the company grow fast, and Lucy was a big part of that. And she stayed at home. We had a little office in her home, and she'd take all the phone calls and meet people while I was out in the field working, drilling wells.
Willard saw a future of more than just drilling water wells. He started the J.W. Kinzer Drilling Company and drilled his first natural gas well in 1956. In fact, the first new drilling rig he ever bought still sits outside his office. Lucy and Willard had their first son, Terry, and life was good. But tragically, the couple lost 3 babies in a row, starting with their twin boys.
And then our twins, we lost them. They was between, the 3 babies that we lost was between Terry and Jerry.
After losing another son, James Willard Jr., at 2 months old, Lucy gave birth to Jerry, completing their family. And as the boys grew, they started riding motorcycles, and Willard convinced Honda to let him open a Honda dealership in Floyd County, but he gives all the credit for its success to Lucy.
I still was pushing my drilling company hard. Terry and Jerry was in school, and I couldn't take care of the dealership. Terry didn't want to anymore, decided he wanted to be a school teacher. And so Lucy took it over. She said, I'll take it over and run it. So she ran the Honda dealership.
And I think it's fair to say that Lucy Kinzer had as much of a drive to succeed as her husband.
The late 70s, she was the largest Honda dealer, sold more Hondas in the state of Kentucky in any dealership, included the big ones in Lexington and Louisville. She sold 700 and some Hondas.
As the years passed, Kinzer Drilling Company continued to grow and became the largest independent drilling company in Kentucky, with more than 2,000 active wells. And the more success Willard and Lucy found, the more they gave back. And Willard says, for Lucy, that went far beyond just writing a check.
I run into one lady at the airport, and she was looking at her jacket, and that lady didn't have much on, and she was bragging on it, and Lucy just pulled it off and gave it to her. Oh yeah, jewelry too. She would do the same thing. She's just the most generous person you ever saw.
The Kinzers were instrumental in the development and opening of the Mountain Arts Center in Prestonsburg. But Willard also believes in promoting education in eastern Kentucky.
Also with the Pikeville College, we've really done a lot for them too. If you notice that dormitory they have up there,
the
Kinzer family, we bought that building.
Willard and Lucy poured their heart into founding the Wesley Christian School in his hometown of Allen, which now boasts an enrollment of more than 200 students. In fact, if you see Willard wearing a baseball cap with a bright red W, it doesn't stand for Willard. He's showing his support for Wesley Christian.
I think it serves a bigger benefit for everybody, and of course that's what I like to see, is like to help everybody that I can in a good way.
But he says Lucy also poured her heart into helping others, especially young women who needed a little help.
This Hope of the Mountain over here, she'd go over there every week and spend time with them, take them something, and that's where they put her name on the bridge over here. You can stand right there where they put her name up and look straight over and see them girls over on the side of the hill.
Willard lost his beloved Lucy in July of 2015, just a few months after the couple celebrated their 70th wedding anniversary. A loss Willard says he will never get over.
Lucy's been gone, of course, a little over a year and a half, and I visit her every day. I've already visited her today, and that love will last until I'm dead and gone.
No matter the season or the weather, Willard never fails to visit Lucy at their family cemetery, where signs of his love for her are everywhere.
Hope in the Mountains is a residential treatment facility for women. It's for women who have substance use disorders. We look at individual counseling, group counseling, and we incorporate the 12-step meetings also. The staff has a lot of self-awareness, personal self-awareness, and I think that is so crucial when working with this population, because you can only help someone heal to the extent that you've healed yourself.
Willard Kinzer has spent his entire life conquering obstacles and finding success far beyond what anyone ever imagined. So why would he let a little thing like age stop him from winning national championships on a motorcycle or drag racing at over 250 miles an hour? With the success of their Honda motorcycle dealership, it was no surprise when Willard's sons, Terry and Jerry, started racing. But they didn't race on a regular track. Their interest was hill climbing.
Terry run in the top fuel class, and each one of them won the national championship the first year, and then Jerry just quit. Terry went on, he won 2 national championships in an amateur, went pro, and won 2 in pro. And then he went up in Canada and won the Canadian National Championship.
But Terry suffered a hand injury that threatened to end his career, so he asked his father to pick up where he left off.
And he said, you can do it. I said, well, I'll try it. So I started the first year and run it in amateur, won the national championship, and then I went pro. Make a long story short, I won 2 amateur and 2 professional national championships, went to Canada and won the Canadian National Championship.
And all that didn't happen until Willard Kinzer was in his 50s. His next challenge was running in the world's largest hill climb in Salt Lake City, Utah, the Widowmaker. And as usual, Lucy was by his side.
We was getting ready to go up in the mountains where the hill climb was. She saw a lot of tombstones there. And of course it was real close to the Utah State Prison, and it was prisoners that were buried there. But I told her, I said, that's people that couldn't make the hill here on the hill climbing. Then I told her different. That was some hill climb. There's over 20,000 spectators.
How'd you do?
I won it. And I won it with that back you're looking at right and the trophy room.
But all his successes didn't come without his fair share of injuries.
I got hurt several times. Broke a shoulder, I broke a collarbone, and I had all kinds of accidents, but when it healed up, I'd go right back.
Nearly everyone in eastern Kentucky is familiar with Willard Kinzer's need for speed. But Willard says Lucy also had a lead foot from time to time, especially when she was trying to catch up with Willard, who, unknown to her, was actually a few minutes behind her.
I come along over here to Allen, where you come down the hill to the traffic light, and the police had her pulled over. He said before he ever pulled her over, he thought, well, now I've got me an old drunk out here Saturday night, and nobody else wouldn't be driving that fast. She was going well over 100 miles an hour. And he told her, he said, do you know how fast you was going? She said, yeah, I was speeding pretty good. Said, I was trying to catch my husband. She thought I was in front.
Willard's success in business has allowed him to have the fastest cars, but it wasn't until he was in his mid-70s that he began drag racing officially. Willard and his crew spend several months out of the year traveling across the country, challenging the clock and other drivers. When Willard was 83, he started gaining national attention and breaking records. In his 1993 orange Ford Mustang, Willard was the first driver in history to drive a stock suspension car faster than 230 miles per hour, 239.8 to be exact. He has set records in Indianapolis, Orlando, and in Las Vegas, to name a few, but he loves to race local tracks equally as much. But no matter which track he is on, Willard Kinzer knows drag racing is dangerous. Every successful driver has had his share of crashes, and Willard is no exception. In 2015, at 87 years old, Willard hit speeds of more than 250 miles per hour in this twin-turbo 1969 Camaro. But in this never-before-seen footage, an engine malfunction last summer in Ohio put Willard Kinzer in the driver's seat of a burning car.
Stop fire! Let's go! Get him Willard Kinzer is out of the car. Willard is out of the car. We're handed a blaze down there. They are fighting it right now. We can see the fire suppressor being applied. We got there with an extinguisher quickly, but boy, that was a heck of a fire, and it still continues to go. Everybody down there has responded. Willard is out of the race car, so Kinzer is okay.
In 2017, Willard Kinzer will turn 89 years old, and he plans to be behind the wheel on the starting line every chance he gets, which is exactly what we have come to expect from this amazing man who has never backed down from a challenge.
It's just fun to race. It always has been. It's something you can't explain. It just happens.
Willard and his beloved Lucy have left an indelible mark on the lives of everyone in our region. But although she is gone now, Willard hasn't stopped. He's the first in his office every day and the last to leave. And if you can't find him there, check out the nearest drag strip. Thanks so much for joining us for One on One.
One on One with Willard Kinzer has been presented by Kinzer Drilling in Prestonsburg, who are proud to support Hope of the Mountains.